Alright, I think we're rolling. Okay, so first off, let me say we're in a new filming space. I don't know how I feel about that. Well, I know how I feel about that. I'm excited. But it's gonna take some time to kind of figure out how we want this whole thing to look. Obviously, I mean, Poku is happy as ever. But anyway, today we're talking about a solution to something that I think every turtle keeper kind of deals with but never really talks about, and that is evaporation and having to top off water. Basically, if you've ever kept turtles or even fish tanks in general, you've probably experienced evaporation in your fish tanks, and that means you constantly have to top off water. And so I have a bit of a solution for that. Also a solution to hopefully prevent some escapee turtles. Basically, when you have a lot of evaporation in a turtle tank or an escapee turtle, one way you can help combat that is by putting some kind of lid on the tank, because that just prevents some more gas exchange from the surface of the water, and it traps some of that humidity that's trying to escape the tank. It can also help keep the area around the tank cleaner, like if you have a bubbler that's constantly, making bubbles and it pops some of the water outside of the tank, a lid should help with that as well. I think that's a pretty simple explanation, so let's just get into it. First off, materials. You're gonna want some kind of corrugated plastic or acrylic sheet, something like that. Basically, the idea is you take something and you cut it to the size of the tank. I'm using corrugated plastic because, for one, plastic is just going to be durable, it's rigid, so it's not going to bend, and it's also good at trapping that moisture and humidity in. Mine is white and opaque. Ideally, it would be clear. Now, the problem with this opaque one is that if you don't have a light like this that's actually underneath the rim of the tank, you have to have something that will shine through here. So ideally, like I said, you want this to be clear. So corrugated plastic or even acrylic sheets would work for something like this, a DIY lid that will help manage evaporation. I know this can be a bit tricky to find, so let's hop over to the hardware store to see where we're gonna buy this. Once you have your lid material of choice, let's talk about some tools. This is easy enough. You can use some kind of cutting tool. I am using a razor blade, carpet cutter. You likely could use scissors. And then, of course, a measuring tape to measure how big you want to cut it. And then a pencil or pen to mark. A ruler is helpful for straight lines. First thing you're gonna do is measure the tank and where you want the lid to sit. Personally, I wouldn't cover the entire length of the tank. I would cover maybe half or a little more than that, maybe 2/3, 3/4, something like that, because you still want there to be oxygen exchange. You just want to block some of that humidity from escaping. Later on, you're gonna also want to think about the holes that you're gonna need for filters and basking areas, but for the starters, just measure the area of the tank where you want the lid to be. Also, you want to make sure that you measure it super precisely from the inside edges so that it actually sits in there. You got to be very, very particular, or else it's gonna be too small and it'll fall through. So just keep that in mind. From there, measure your lid material, mark it down with a pencil, use a ruler to keep it straight, and then you're gonna just cut along that line. So here you can see I cut this piece for the tank. I'm gonna set it on here. And it's nice to have a lid like this because sometimes you have a basking area or something, or your filter that you need to account for, which a regular aquarium hood might not, especially in the case of above tank basking areas. Plus, it also prevents unwanted things from actually falling into the tank. So that's another thing. And again, as for materials, you don't have to use corrugated plastic. You could use something like acrylic. Just make sure you have a way to actually cut it to size. I think that's it. I hope this video was at least somewhat helpful and at least demonstrated that you don't have to use stuff specifically made for fish or turtles in order to create something for your tank that's gonna improve its functionality. If you did enjoy it, feel free to drop a thumbs up down below, comment below any tips or tricks that you have learned if you've tried this, and I'll see you guys next Friday. Have a totally awesome day. Bye!